Chapter 12. The Reckoning. The air trembled with the sound of battle. Smoke rose in dark spirals above the ruins of the Doctrine's stronghold, carrying the acid stench of burning stone and flesh. What had once been an unshakable fortress was now a broken carcass. Walls that had stood for generations collapsed in thunderous cascades, and the sky itself seemed to shudder with the weight of retribution. Different stood at the heart of it all, chest heaving, his weapon slick with the blood of enemies. Around him, allies pressed forward, their faces streaked with the ash and resolve. There were no longer hidden shadows or whispers of resistance. They all stood revealed and unveiled, fighting under the open sun. Their choice to show their faces was not arrogance but defiance, a declaration they would no longer live unseen or unnamed. Across the battlefield, the Doctrine rallied in desperation. Hooded figures surged like a tide of pale specters, their white sheets whipping in the wind. They fought not for freedom but for control, for the preservation of a creed that had strangled life from those who opposed it. Yet even in their zeal, they flattered. The Doctrine's leaders had always cloaked themselves in anonymity, shrouded by ritual and fear. Today, that veil was torn apart. Her voice rose above the din, a cry both fierce and steady. She moved through the chaos like a spark carried out onto the wind, igniting courage in all who saw her. The scar on her palm throbbed as though the binding sought to chain her once again, but she ignored its phantom pull. Every step, every strike was her renunciation of the covenant forced upon her. Different fought near her side, their movements unspoken but in rhythm. Where she turned, he guarded. Where he struck, she advanced. The connection between them was unyielding, forged not in ritual but in shared rebellion. He had once feared that love in war was weakness, a distraction that could undo him. Yet with her, it was strength, the reminder of what they fought for and the proof that something purer than conquest endured. The Doctrine's chant rose, guttural and furious. For him, for the purity. Their cries reverberated across the field, but the words rang hollow now. Their numbers were dwindling. Fear bled through their ranks like a spreading stain. At the center of their defense, he appeared, cloaked in white and hooded, but unmistakable. His presence drew silence even amidst the slaughter. His voice cut through the smoke and clashed like a blade. She is mine. She was bound, and you different and nothing more than fire destined to burn out like a flame. Her heart tightened at the sight of him, the one who had stolen her name, her choice, her body's freedom. Yet she did not falter, yet she did not flatter. She lifted her weapon, eyes meeting his across the carnage. I was never yours. You cannot own fire. I blaze on with him, with different. A roar erupted as their voices and forces clashed anew. The fight stretched into the hours that felt like lifetimes. Friends fell, enemies crumbled. The crowd itself drank deeply of the blood that was shed. Different carved a path with relentless fury, every strike fueled by the memory of chains, by the faces of those that the Doctrine had silenced. He became a storm, and behind him the Doctrine's wars shattered. Its symbols burned. Still, victory carried a shadow. She had known from the moment they chose to fight, unveiled, that survival was uncertain. Their cause demanded more than courage, it demanded a sacrifice. And she had resolved what hers must be in that moment. As the Doctrine's line broke, she surged toward him alone. Her allies shouted after her, but she pressed forward with unflinching steps. Their blades clashed, his strength monstrous, hers sharpened by fury and clarity. Sparks sprayed into the darkening sky with every strike. For a heartbeat, it seemed she might overpower him, that the chains of her past would shudder fully in his eventual defeat. But it was a trap, alas, that sprung upon her. From the shadows of the collapsing hall, hooded men surged forth, dozens of them. Their sheets glimmered like a tide of bone in the firelight. They swarmed her, dragging her weapon from her hand. She fought like a lioness cornered, teeth bared, fist striking, but numbers overwhelmed her. A different scream ripped across the battlefield as he saw her being seized. He carved through the doctrine soldiers with reckless fury, desperate to reach her, but the distance was too great and the enemies too many. She caught his gaze as they bound her. In her eyes there was no fear, only a fierce, unshakable resolve. She mouthed the words that only he could understand. Let them take me. It was her decoy, her sacrifice. It was her plan the whole time. She had known the doctrine's pride would never allow them to admit defeat openly. They needed a prisoner, a symbol. By becoming the unwilling symbol, she gave Different the chance to shatter their power. And he did. With her capture, the doctrine turned their attention inward, believing their victory assured. And Different seized that moment, rallying the resistance. He unleashed fire upon their final defenses. Walls buckled, towers fell, and the crowds of the doctrine turned from fury to despair and to surrender. Many perished in the inferno, others cast off their hoods and fled into the night. Faith broken, cause abandoned. Tactical retreat? It was not. They were defeated. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield lay in ruins. The doctrine fortress was gone, Dominion fractured beyond repair. But she was not there. Only her weapon lay discarded, the steel bent, its hilt carved with the words she had once whispered to him. Don't let them take your fire away, because I won't. Different fell to his knees, lifting the weapon as though it weighed more than the world itself. Ash clung to his skin. Sweat stung his eyes, but as he read the words carved into the steel, something steadied him within him. At that moment, his eyes were looking from the ground to the horizon, and he picked up a note that read the words, "Of all the money that ever I had, I spent it in good company. Oh, and all the harm I've ever done, alas, it was none but me. And all I've done for what of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So, fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and joy be to you all." There were lyrics to the parting glass, a song that he had once sang to her when they had laid together, when they had practiced for this moment, when they had first met. He couldn't believe it, as his eyes glanced from the paper, looking upwards into the horizon where the sun rose blood-red through the haze. The grief gnawed at him, though loss pressed heavy on his chest. Resolve kindled anew in his heart. He whispered to the rising light, voice hoarse but unbroken, "Then I will scorch the earth, come hell or high water, I will find her. And until I find our child, this fire in me will never die."